Hey guys, welcome back to the video. I'm Luke, a CFA Charterholder, and today we're going to be discussing one of the anti-takeover and anti-activist techniques and strategies that company managers use to prevent against hostile parties taking control of their board, and that is staggered boards. So staging election cycles over multiple periods and delaying the appointment and re-election of directors to the company's board. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so some companies will employ a staggered board system, and as I said in the intro, staggered board systems are primarily used to prevent against unwanted parties like activists from taking control of the board or from potential acquirers building up a shareholding and trying to execute a hostile takeover of the company. So prevent against activist shareholders, prevent against hostile takeovers. This is a form of defense strategy employed by boards that want to prevent against third parties affecting major unwanted change by looking to gain majority control of the board of directors in one election cycle. So what's the formal definition of a staggered board? The formal definition of a staggered board is a system or strategy where a company staggers the election of its board of directors over multiple years or multiple periods. And this means that only a handful of directors go up for re-election each year, and as a result, and this is the key point here, the entire board cannot be replaced in one go. Because if you have a staggered board, this would mean that it would take many years to replace the board, which is a huge deterrent to activist investors. So activists are typically hedge funds, and hedge funds obviously have investors of their own, and their investors want to see returns in a relatively short time frame. So by implementing a staggered board, it takes far longer for an activist to gain control of a board of the target, which makes it much less attractive to pursue that company as a potential activist opportunity. So staggered boards are very common, and they're a huge deterrent to activist investors and activist shareholders. So what's the alternative? So the alternative to having a staggered board is to hold simultaneous elections of all directors once every few years. And a staggered board helps prevent an activist taking control in a very short time frame because it stages the elections incrementally over multiple years. So you either don't implement a staggered board and you run your election cycle so all of your board can be replaced in one go every couple of years, or you operate a staggered board framework where only a small proportion of your directors go up for re-election every year, and that's staggered so that different directors are going up for re-election every year. And the key point is that activists, as a result, can't gain majority control of the board within one election cycle. So let's run through an example. So this should make it, hopefully, crystal clear as to how a staggered board works. So in this example, we have three classes of directors: Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, and each class contains three directors. So the elections for the first class of three directors takes place every 3 years at the end of year 1, year 4, year 7, and so on and so forth. So the elections are taking place every 3 years in year 1, year 4, year 7. The second class of three directors go up for re-election at the end of year 2, year 5, year 8, so on and so forth. So you're probably starting to get the gist now. The third class of three directors go up for re-election at the end of year 3, year 6, year 9, and so on and so forth. So you're staggering the re-election cycle. The first class of directors goes up for re-election year 1, year 4, year 7. Second class, year 2, year 5, and year 8, and so on and so forth. So what does this mean? So this means that the activists must take at least 2 years or 2 election cycles, to be accurate, to gain a majority control of the board. So to gain majority of control, if it's got 9 directors on it, you're going to need 5 seats. So 5 board members replaced with directors that favour the activist strategy, which is over 50%. And it would take them 3 years or 3 election cycles to gain full control of the board. So to replace all 9 directors would take a potential activist 3 years. Now this time delay is highly unattractive because activists, even though they're not super short-term investors, they want to execute strategies in a relatively short time frame. So staggered boards will detract activists from building up a shareholding in the company. because 2 years is a long, long time for an activist to wait. Within 2 years, business conditions could change, which could mean that the business that the activist is targeting suddenly starts to perform well again. Their investment objectives could change, or the firm could see an uptick in financial performance or share price, making an activist campaign much less attractive. So what's the alternative in this example? So the alternative would be for all 9 directors to go up for re-election together, all in one go, every 3 years. This approach would make it far more easier for an unwanted shareholder to replace the board in one go and gain majority control of the company and therefore be able to affect its desired change. So what are the downsides of staggered boards? The problem with staggered boards, and why companies sometimes pivot away from them, is that they implicitly allow for long-term board continuity. They limit new perspectives, and that can introduce short-termism into company strategy. Companies that follow a staggered board framework tend to end up with directors on their boards that are there for a long time. So yeah, that's staggered boards. Hopefully that was helpful. Any questions, feel free to fire them off in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.